Hi, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking you for joining us today in today's webinar and for your interest in learning more on how dry hydrogen peroxide, what we refer to as DHP, supports your EVS mission without requiring your oversight, essentially supporting your environmental hygiene outcomes without adding any additional EVS staff. You will understand what dry hydrogen peroxide is and how it can help achieve microbial reduction within your healthcare facilities. Our presenters today are Mike Short and Scott Taylor. Let me start with Mike. Mike is the Administrative Director of Facility, small typo there, sorry folks, Support Services at Maureen Regional Medical Center, excuse me, and located in Columbia, Tennessee. Previously, he was Master Coordinator for the Service Master Company at Emory University in Atlanta, Fort Sanders Regional Medical Center in Knoxville, and Joyce Community Hospital in Laurel, Mississippi. He obtained his MBA from Middle Tennessee State University and holds memberships in the American Society of Healthcare Environmental Services, American Society of Hospital Engineers, Tennessee Hospital Association, American College of Healthcare Executives, and the International Associate of Hospital Safety and Security. Mike is a certified health safety professional and has served as an emergency response instructor at the National Center for Preparedness and Response, Vanderbilt University. Welcome, Mike. Scott Taylor is the director at Synexus. He has previously served as a national client partner with other acclaimed healthcare organizations. He earned his undergraduate degree in biology and history with minors in chemistry and psychology, and a graduate degree in pharmacology from the University of Mississippi. It's my honor to hand over today's presentation to Mike Short. Mike?
All right, well, thank you, and hello, everyone. I appreciate the introduction, Denise. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. And, whether you're a EVS colleague, a housekeeping person, or an IP teammate, you know that we're all partners in maintaining a safe environment. A safe environment of care, really, for all those that come into our facility, and that includes and most certainly focuses on mitigating the risk of HIAs or hospital-acquired infections. So I'm thrilled to be with you. Glad to be here and share some new and exciting things with you. So before we get started, let me add a little bit to Denise's introduction of me. First and foremost, as I said, I'm an EVS facilities guy. I've spent my entire career in healthcare on the facilities and cleaning side of the house. I've served in a large academic medical center, a tertiary care facility, not-for-profit environment. My career has covered a wide range of places and people across the Southeast. I've served as a third-party EVS contractor and an in-house manager and EVS director. Not an engineer, not a chemist or a scientist, and certainly I wouldn't classify myself as a cutting-edge innovator in the cleaning world. I'm a housekeeping and cleaning person. It's kind of my passion to help create and sustain a clean environment that enhances the patient experience and, most importantly, keeps our patients and our team safe and does not contribute to a negative outcome in their healing process. I've, over the years, always looked for and identified both better ways to clean from a process standpoint, as well as innovative practices that contribute to the overall mission of cleaning and effectively and consistently applying those processes across all of the healthcare environments. Over the years, and to a great extent, cleaning has not changed all that much. It's traditionally, and to a large degree, remains the same. It's a team member with a cleaning cloth or a mop, wiping down and disinfecting a surface with a cleaning agent, a chemical, to remove the soil, the microbes, bioburden, and render the surface disinfected and clear of harmful microbes. There have been innovations in both cleaning agents as well as tools of the trade that have aided us in the cleaning process, like the evolution of microfiber development, highly effective cleaning solutions and disinfecting agents with shorter dwell times, ultraviolet technology, robotic cleaning systems, and even higher levels of automation in the cleaning environment, really something we never thought possible. All of these developments over the years, as good as they are, and as good as they have been, really didn't prepare us for what we all faced about 5 years ago when COVID struck. To say that it changed the world we live in, and for all of us, the one we work in, is an understatement. what it did, among many things in healthcare, is change the way we think about airborne contaminants and airborne microbes. Frankly, until most recently, there's not been a lot of innovation and traction in developing strategies to get at the heart of cleaning relative to airborne contaminants and air and surface disinfection. Specifically, what can we do to attack these building blocks of infection transmittal that is both sustainable and repeatable and yields results that literally speak for themselves? So, for the next few minutes, I and my colleagues will be sharing with you both an innovative and leading edge technology that provides the answer to the airborne microbe question and does so in a way that, as the program title suggests, supports the EVS mission without requiring your direct management and oversight. So with that in mind, let's move through this. In today's webinar, I'm going to introduce you to dry hydrogen peroxide. You're going to hear me refer to it as DHP throughout the presentation. And we do have some objectives for you, and hopefully you walk away with having these questions sort of answered in your mind. One, to understand what DHP is and how it operates, to learn how it achieves microbial reduction, to recognize how DHP supports manual cleaning and disinfection. Very important point there. This is not to replace. This is to support and augment cleaning and disinfection by creating a lower steady state of microbial contamination. I want you to appreciate what sets DHP apart from other no-touch technologies. Learn about how DHP outcomes from across the continuum of care. The science speaks for itself. You're going to hear a lot about the science part of this. And finally, learn how DHP addresses the current constraints experienced by many EVS departments. So this should be a common phrase to any of you that work in the healthcare arena, and that is do no harm. And it's a very important overarching strategy and concept that got its roots in the Hippocratic Oath, but it really drives the mission of most healthcare workers, and certainly in the environmental services, it sort of directs us to the right outcome as we strive to ensure a safe work environment for patients to receive care and for our fellow healthcare workers to deliver it. So what it really means is we don't want to inflict some other element into the healing process that harms the patient. And that's exactly what an HIA, as you know, is. So one of our missions is to do no harm. It also is important because this slide is familiar to you if you work in the world of healthcare and you talk about HCAHPS and the notion that we try to produce this always statement relative to the question of during your hospital stay, how often were your room and bathroom kept clean? And I know if you're an EVS person, certainly you struggle like I do producing that always response from our patients, because theoretically, if you think about it, when is the room always clean? Well, it's maybe always clean at its closest point when your EVS professional goes in and cleans that room. But the minute they leave that room and somebody else enters that room, the always technically goes away. You're introducing something new into that room that wasn't there before and can potentially contributes to the negative environment. So achieving always is a hard outcome for us to get. What looks clean maybe makes the patient feel comfortable, isn't necessarily always clean. The problem is airborne and surface microbes are invisible to the naked eye. You don't always see them, but you may very well know they're there. They're hardy, meaning they can survive in the environment for extended periods, and they can also survive virtually anywhere in the environment. It literally knows no bounds. This image illustrates that concept to you. It's from a study demonstrating all the places in a patient's ICU room where VRE was recovered despite daily cleaning efforts. We know that contamination like this can lead to the contamination of healthcare workers' hands. It can be transmitted then to patients through direct contact, both of which lead to increased risk of infection transmission. And research has demonstrated that enhanced improved cleaning and disinfection can reduce the risk. Potential sources of transmission not typically included in EVS daily disinfection protocols are the portable medical equipment, those items left in the room. Studies such as this one demonstrate that manual cleaning and disinfection are often suboptimally performed. Carling and colleagues found that only 50% of surfaces were adequately cleaned across 11 different hospital environments. So you ask the question, why is that? Why can't we standardize and make consistent? Well, the simple answer is we're human, and the people doing our work are human. They make mistakes, especially when rushed, short-staffed, or inadequately trained. The odds that we will miss at least part of the surface when cleaning and disinfecting are high. We know this from auditing studies like the one I showed you on the last slide. And even if cleaning and disinfection protocols were perfectly executed, it can only happen at a single point in time. Meanwhile, contamination occurs continuously. Patients and healthcare workers constantly shed microbes into the environment. So even if we do a perfect job cleaning, even if we hit always one time and we disinfect that room, it will be recontaminated the minute someone else enters it. We also know that we rarely do a perfect job cleaning because the type of study looking at prior occupancy risk. This study shows that a new patient admitted to a terminally cleaned room that was previously occupied by a patient with a resistant pathogen has a significantly increased risk of acquiring that same pathogen. So somewhere, somehow, we're leaving those pathogens behind in the environment. And that's basically clearly what this slide shows. So how do we address this? We do it by filling the gaps, literally and figuratively, those gaps that we leave by manual cleaning and disinfection. As the CDC advises us, we are charged with identifying the needs that we have for cleaning, employing a systematic process for identifying solutions with multidisciplinary input, and ensure that those solutions are suited to our facility's needs. Ideally, the environmental strategy would address contamination as it occurs, addressing both air and surface contamination, including the remotest surfaces in the room. It would also address pests and insects that aren't just unsightly, but can also be vectors of infection. Importantly, it would do all of this without asking more of a strained existing staff or requiring EVS professionals to go ask for more people. In other words, we need an automated immune system for our facilities. That's where dry hydrogen peroxide answers the question. Synexis uses patented technology to transform the naturally occurring oxygen and humidity in the air into dry hydrogen peroxide, or DHP. DHP effectively breaks down pathogens flowing freely and continuously through the indoor spaces to reduce the presence of microbes in the air and surfaces. Importantly, DHP works while you work without interrupting your facility's occupancy. If you think about it, DHP really operates like a silent partner in the background, attacking bacteria, viruses, molds, fungi, insects, volatile organic compounds, what we call VOCs. It operates continuously every day, 365 days a year, flowing throughout a treated space, reducing microbes in the air and surfaces. It can be used in a wide range of spaces, from your hospital cafeteria to your cath lab, to your endo suite, to your ER, critical care, not to mention a host of other facility types. It is Underwriter Labs certified to be ozone free. We know that microbes can exist anywhere and everywhere in the environment. from air to surfaces. We also know that volatile organic compounds can be a real health hazard, not to mention a nuisance in indoor air. VOCs are chemicals that emanate from items such as furniture or laminates to human excretions. At high concentrations, they can be a serious health threat, but even at low concentrations, those that emanate from feces or urine or other human excretions, they can be extremely unpleasant for staff and patients alike. DHP breaks down all these threats, microbes, VOCs, and insects, no matter how remote or how hidden they are, because as a gas, it flows wherever air flows. As you saw in the earlier slides, Synexus devices take occurring oxygen and humidity present in a room and generate dry hydrogen peroxide, a true gas whose molecular structure is very similar to water. Critically, the concentration of hydrogen peroxide generated falls below OSHA's standard, and the process by which DHP is created, generated, falls well below OSHA's standard. It does not generate ozone, a fact established by UL. Every time you run a device, the DHP generated will encounter more than 2 million microorganisms and can travel 200 yards or more every second to help make your indoor space safe. DHP isn't just an immune system for healthcare settings. It has transformed indoor environments across multiple vertical applications, making Synexus a leader in the air purification industry. DHP is the true gas form of hydrogen peroxide created by patented technology which uses oxygen and humidity naturally present in the environment. Once inside the device, the oxygen and humidity are broken apart by photocatalytic reaction, which is a chemical reaction involving light absorption, and then put back together as DHP. The technology is not a filter. It's a true gas that flows unaided to every corner of the occupied space, reducing viruses, bacteria, molds, odors, and insects in the air, on surfaces and in the most hard to reach places. Now, as I said, I'm not a scientist, but we do have a colleague that's joining us on this webinar. And I'm going to hand this over to Scott and let him give you a little bit more insight into not only the science, but the case studies behind the science to validate it. Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate everybody joining. Again, as Mike has alluded to several times as he's been speaking, so DHP does not replace manual cleaning or disinfection efforts. It actually supports them. So if you take a look here on the left side of the slide, the top graphic shows what manual cleaning and disinfection do to a facility's microbial load in a space. So each time the terminal cleaning process is performed, let's say your EVS team does a marvelous job, that microbial load is reduced substantially. The room essentially goes from dirty to clean, if you will. However, because this isn't a static environment, these are dynamic spaces. The second that room or that area is re-inhabited, the microbial load rises again between the manual cleanings just because of contamination from patients, visitors, and healthcare workers. That said, if you take a look at the lower graph on the left-hand side, when DHP is deployed, the rise in microbial load between cleanings is blunted because DHP operates around the clock, basically fighting contamination as it occurs and lowering that steady state. Now, we don't show a flat line here because let's be honest, this is not a silver bullet technology. No technology is. This is just an adjunct technology that is going to drive down the amplitude of the microbial burden between these cleanings. So now Synexus, again, and let me kind of just touch on the overall microbial reduction. In terms of viruses, the way the kill dynamics work is that DHP is actually just denaturing the RNA or DNA of a particular viral pathogen. And for vegetative organisms like bacteria, what's happening is that the cell walls are actually semi-permeable to DHP. So what happens is the gas continues to flow into these cells. It causes a buildup in these oxidative species. It eventually causes these bacteria to burst. Likewise, for vegetative species like bacteria, they tend not to reproduce when there's an environmental stressor around, because hydrogen peroxide is an environmental stressor, a great environmental stressor. It's both killing the organism and any organisms that remain, it is retarding their division rate. So we can go to this next slide. Synexus technology is ready to ship today. So no matter the size, type of facility, or the constraints of the room, the Synexus solution is adaptable. Whether installed out of sight within an HVAC system or in a standalone configuration, both can be deployed quickly at scale. The blade that you see here on the left can be installed in your existing ductwork, HVAC ductwork, without affecting the system. The sphere is the most versatile device that we have, and we've seen a lot more of this device deployed since the pandemic because patients, employees, they're wanting to see that show me clean aspect. So this requires only a standard 120 volt outlet. It's plug and play. It can be mounted or placed in any room and moved to rooms as needed. The latest model that we've come out with is our Sentry XL. It's an advanced portable device that delivers a wider operating range and extended coverage for larger, more challenging indoor environments. So it's capable of withstanding colder environments down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and it provides coverage up to about 3,500 square feet. So this is ideal for those high airflow or those high air exchange areas, such as ORs or compounding pharmacies. The blade and the sphere, as I previously discussed, those cover about 1,000 square feet each. And depending on the air dynamics within the room, we typically have our engineering team spec that out to make sure that the proper amount of coverage is being delivered. Synexus is also a company that has been deeply invested in data, establishing efficacy through rigorous clinical trials. So these studies have been published in esteemed peer-reviewed journals and have garnered attention from other industry publications. As you can see, here is our body of evidence. So we are the sole developer of DHP, and our patents cover every aspect of DHP technology, including the devices, methods of production, applications, and usage. In other words, there is only one DHP. These are some of the most important differentiating factors that set DHP apart from other no-touch environment disinfection strategies. So as I said before, it fights bacteria, viruses, molds, and fungi. It repels insects, and it degrades VOCs in the air and on surfaces. We are clinically validated by 11 peer-reviewed studies. Again, the gas is flowing wherever the air flows, so it's continuously disinfecting both air and surfaces within an indoor space. It is safe for occupied spaces. Of course, we produce zero ozone. We are UL 2998 certified as a zero ozone producing technology, and it begins mitigating microbes the moment they're introduced in real time at the point of risk. Additionally, the maintenance portion of this device only requires a catalyst and a filter change out once every 6 months. It takes about 2 minutes to do, so very, very low maintenance. So the following few slides will show some highlights from a few of our studies that we've seen. The first slide references a case study on USP 797 in compliance, or 797 compliance, in which an IP and pharmacy director resolved continued environmental monitoring failures by deploying DHP. They resolved the failures and achieved and maintained USP 79 standard compliance by collaborating to identify and solve the problem with DHP. So this study that you see here was conducted in Sunrise Hospital. It's a large tertiary care facility in Nevada. DHP was deployed as an adjunct to their standard manual cleaning and disinfection protocol. The researchers documented a statistically significant 96.5% reduction in surface bacterial contamination with the use of DHP after just a single day. And they've also included significant reductions maintained throughout that entire 28-day study. Notably, that they found that soft surfaces were particularly impacted. So things like cushions and privacy curtains, and that saw a 99.5% reduction in contamination of privacy curtains, and that was achieved after just a single day. So this study published in AJIC is especially compelling. Now, it was conducted in a pediatric oncology hospital in Guatemala. What's interesting to note is, although this is an international study, this facility is part of the St. Jude International Research Network. So it follows CDC guidelines, CDC criteria for infection reporting, and all Western protocols. It's essentially a hospital that you would find anywhere in the States that just happens to be in Guatemala. What they did is they deployed DHP in their pediatric intensive care unit and demonstrated that patients in the room with DHP were 61.4% less likely to develop an HAI during their stay rate than patients in a room without DHP. On a specific pathogen level, there was also a statistically significant reduction in C. diff-associated gastroenteritis. So the evidence here is that DHP is not just reducing microbial contamination, but it's also having effect on the overall infection aspect of reducing HAIs in general. Another AGIC study, but one from a vastly different setting, is a long-term care facility in New York State. So the study deployed DHP in the neurobehavioral unit of the facility, an area in which infection prevention and control is uniquely challenging because of the cognitive constraints of the patients, of the population. So you're not seeing these normal hand washing, you're not seeing social distancing just because of the type of patients that are in here. The researchers demonstrated statistically significant reductions in microbial contamination, almost 90% by day 55, along with significant reductions in VOCs, 98.6 by day 55. Notably, the facility's IP reported that DHP also resulted in less resource utilization in terms of skilled nursing or medical provider care for outbreak investigation and management. This was also during COVID-19, and the facility was significantly understaffed, making enhanced manual cleaning and disinfection efforts virtually impossible. The facility's data is undergoing analysis now to assess DHP's impact on COVID cases, and our preliminary data indicates that this is very favorable data. This study was conducted in 2 different tertiary care facilities, and it was published in Infection Control and Hospital Epidemiology. Mainly, it demonstrated the significant reductions in air bioburden and VOCs. And as we know, VOCs in a small area or over a long period of time actually impairs cognitive function within the individuals that reside in there. So you can see the drastic reduction in those VOCs and bioburden. Moving on to a more recent threat, Candida auris. So this study was conducted in an adult intensive care and step-down burn unit of a large hospital in Florida. The researchers demonstrated a statistically significant 92.9% reduction of environmental contamination with C. auris in the rooms of patients who were either infected or colonized with the fungus after just 1 week, while the patients were occupying the room. So again, almost 93% reduction in C. auris contaminations in the rooms of patients who were actively infected or colonized, despite the fact that those patients were in the room presumably actively shedding. This highlights the value of the around-the-clock 24/7, 365 environmental strategy regarding the technology. And if you haven't already had to contend with C. auris at your facility yet, you likely will. The CDC and WHO have called C. auris a global threat because it's highly resistant, incredibly hardy, and very difficult to eradicate, which makes an automated, continuous, and effective strategy like DHP incredibly appealing. So the graph on the left is from a study in a Las Vegas hospital demonstrating the reduction in the percentage of samples yielding positive C. auris samples with the use of DHP. And the graph on the right illustrates the significant reductions in C. auris CFUs within patient rooms and burn patient halos after just 14 days. The total average CFU count reduction was 98.57%, and the average count reduction inside the patient halo was 98.44% at the 2-week mark. So it basically, after going through all those, it should be clear that Synexus, we're a very data-driven company with robust evidence from real-world environments and third-party laboratories. In addition to the clinical study data, we have numerous third-party laboratory efficacy data against a broad range of clinically relevant pathogens, including bacteria, viruses, molds, and fungi. And of course, after the webinar, we're more than happy to speak with you and provide that specific information. I'm going to hand this back over to Mike now.
Thank you, Scott. So it should be clear to anyone on the webinar today that Synexus is a data-driven company, and that's why, to a large degree, this clinical validation of efficacy is why they're deployed in health systems across the nation. You know, shifting back into the real-world application here from an EVS professional side, another reason for the broad deployment is that DHP is well suited to the demands faced by EVS departments today. Staffing, if you're like me, staffing remains a challenge. So having an environmental strategy that doesn't require additional staffing or more of our existing environmental team is important. Similarly, time is always premium. Throughput, patient flow, whatever you want to call it, particularly regarding room turnover. So having an environmental strategy that doesn't require the room to be unoccupied for deployment or shut down for a period of time is also key. This kind of ties back to the CDC's core component slide that we looked at earlier about cleaning, environmental cleaning and disinfection, and the selection of cleaning technologies and products. It's critical that you not only consider a technology's efficacy, but also how it will integrate into your facility's operations and impact your workflows and patient throughput. Late 2023, Synexus conducted a study with Brighton Long-Term Care, an extension of the University of Rochester Midland Health System, where they showed major reductions in communal areas as well as patient rooms. They specifically deployed the units in their neurobehavioral unit, which represented the biggest infection prevention challenge, owing to the impact the residents' cognitive deficits have on their ability to comply with even basic infection prevention measures, such as hand washing. The unit also represented a critical financial challenge to the facility. During multiple outbreaks throughout the pandemic, this unit was closed due to resident morbidity, mortality, and staff illness. Therefore, preventing further devastating issues in the unit becoming a priority. This study demonstrated statistically significant reductions without an impact on staffing, which is a key factor for long-term care. Operational considerations are a big part of what separates DHP from other forms of hydrogen peroxide, like hydrogen peroxide vapor or misting. If you've been in EVS for any length of time over the last certainly 5 to 10 years, you've heard about hydrogen peroxide as a cleaning agent. Well, vaporized and aerosolized hydrogen peroxide utilize an aqueous solution that is added to the respective device. That's in contrast to the production of DHP, which, as you've seen and as we've talked about, it's generated as a true gas from the naturally occurring oxygen and humidity in the room's air. Vaporized and aerosolized hydrogen peroxide also produce concentrations of hydrogen peroxide that exceed OSHA standards, which is why they can only be used in an unoccupied space. Hydrogen peroxide vapor technology uses 30 to 35% of aqueous hydrogen peroxide in a solution form that is added to a device to produce the vapor in a treated space. The pro for HPV is that it has demonstrated efficacy against a wide range of pathogens and can be particularly helpful in outbreak scenarios. We saw that happen. Cons for HPV include the room preparation requirements. The room has to be vacated, has to be sealed. That includes dust and ducts and windows and vents and doors. It requires active monitoring with sensors to ensure no leaks occur. Total treatment time, including room preparation, can sometimes range from 1.5 to 2.5 hours. And there is some evidence that HPV can be corrosive to certain material surfaces, particularly those made with nylon. A significant disadvantage, though, is that HPV is a point-in-time intervention, and studies have shown that recontamination can occur rapidly, immediately after treatment. Another methodology, aerosolized or hydrogen peroxide mist, which utilize a less concentrated aqueous solution, sometimes in combination with silver cations or phosphoric acid. The pro and con profile is relatively similar to that of HPV, except that evidence seems to suggest that AHP is less effective than HPV in head-to-head research studies. There's also evidence that AHP doesn't distribute evenly within a treated room. So again, there are some fundamental differences, operational differences between DHP and the other forms of hydrogen peroxide for the whole room decontamination, as this graph clearly shows some of those differentiating points. DHP operates continuously, as we've said, 24/7. If you have one of these devices that Scott shared with you earlier, plugged in and operational or built into your HVAC system, while hydrogen peroxide vapor and aerosolized hydrogen peroxide can only be deployed on an episodic or intermittent basis. And that is because HPV and AHP are not safe for use in occupied spaces. You got to vacate those rooms before deployment. You've seen the devices that can be installed in HVAC ductwork. You saw a picture of that a minute ago, or placed in a room, plugged in, and left to operate around the clock. By contrast, as we've said, HPV and AHP have to be overseen by staff who prepare the rooms for treatment, deploy the device, unseal the room after sealing it. And again, DHP is a true gas created from ambient oxygen and humidity, while HPV and AHP are generated from an aqueous solution added to their respective devices. So when it comes to supplemental technologies, there's really only two main variables to consider: efficacy and operation. Specifically, is it effective and how does it operate? And does that operation suit my facility's needs? And under the umbrella of efficacy and operation, there are some key factors to consider as you evaluate options. So let's talk about some of those. Does it impact contamination both on surfaces and in the air? Some technologies do, while others only have the ability to reduce bioburden in one form or another. Does the technology depend on the installation in the HVAC system? That often means it only impacts airborne contamination when the air circulates through the system, leaving opportunities for transmission when staff or patients come in contact with the contaminated air that hasn't yet traveled through the system. Where can it be used? Is its use limited to certain areas where either because of occupancy concerns or surface material compatibility? Does installation require additional infrastructure changes like HVAC adaptations or replacement? What will the technology's impact on your facility's energy usage be? Does it provide episodic disinfection or can it run continuously? We know that some of the episodic technologies are highly effective at reducing bioburden, but we also know that the minute a patient enters a room that has just been treated, the process of contamination begins again. So does the technology address the issue of ongoing contamination? Does the technology require manual operation or human oversight? That's an additional staffing or additional demands on existing staff, or is it automated? Will the technology's operation impact the ability to turn rooms over and do that in an expeditious manner? And finally, are there less obvious considerations, such as does the technology impact other variables, such as molds, insects, and volatile organic compounds? So you've seen the data. More is being collected every day. DHP can help you create a safer environment. So why choose DHP? Well, this mission statement I have before you is from the Synexus team, and it's to continuously mitigate indoor environmental risk and across the continuum of care for patients, guests, and healthcare professionals, one occupied space at a time. DHP is the natural choice because it offers both efficacy and easy integration. It's fully automated. Some technologies use the term automated when in fact the technology needs someone to wheel it into the room, set it up, and deploy it from a distance. But DHP is real. It is the answer. It's the real deal. It runs on its own all the time because DHP flows everywhere the air goes. It provides comprehensive treatment of room, floor to ceiling, corner to corner. There's no disruption to workflows or patient throughput because it can be used while you work and patients heal. It's safe for occupied spaces. And finally, it gets the job done. So let me leave you with something. Final words, if you will. You know, we live and work in an environment that's full of challenges. There are constraints and conditions that we have no control over. There are regulatory requirements and standards that seem impossible to meet. There are staffing elements that we find unpredictable. We face these challenges with the mission of providing a safe and healthy environment for our patients and coworkers. It's not easy. Getting to always is not easy. Once in a while, the opportunity presents itself for you as an EVS or IP professional to introduce something new and innovative into your facility that really is a difference maker in the comprehensive and overall sense. I believe that is what Synexus can do. I encourage you to take a closer look at the technology and see where it makes sense and where can it integrate into your existing workflows. Do your own homework, ask the questions, talk to a member of the Synexus team today,